Hey, it's Larry Sharpe here at FreedomFest, yet again having great conversations talking about ethics and values and respect. And I'm very lucky I have with me Salomé Sibonex, an artist and a writer. Please tell me about yourself.
So I'm an artist and a writer, and I mainly write about philosophy, and I analyze culture from that standpoint.
Wow.
From the existentialist view. So the idea of creating meaning in our lives.
Wow. So we're going to talk maybe a little bit about that.
Yeah.
What I want to bring up here is a difference in, say, value versus ethics.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is most of us, our values lean either more conservative or they lean more progressive. They lean one way or another. Mm-hmm. And that's normal. I'm not here to get anyone to think differently about that. But our ethics are, at what point is it okay or not okay to use coercion to get people to feel or do as we think is right by our values, right? So if I'm more conservative, when is it good to go, yeah, do it?
Yeah.
When I'm progressive, when is it okay to go do it? Or is it never okay? Or what is that line? I feel like we have to think about this in a very specific way. Most people want to be happy. Would you agree with that or no?
Yeah, definitely.
And at a very basic level, if you harm somebody, hurt somebody, they're going to be less happy. Mm-hmm. Would you agree that's always true?
Yes.
Okay. Basic level. Also, if you harm somebody's stuff, you vandalize their property or take their property through either theft or fraud, they're going to be less happy, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I know you and I think that. You're studying philosophy, we're at FreedomFest. Do you think most people would agree that they want to be happy and they want people to not take their stuff and not hurt them? Or no?
I think that when you pose the question in that way, that people will intuitively understand what you're getting at and say, yes, most people want to be happy. I think where it gets complicated is when you inject the person's self-interest, right?
Okay.
So I can agree with that statement if I'm detached in a certain way. Once you start to bring in specifics of, well, this person is doing this, and so I don't like that they're doing that, so maybe we should force them to do something else. I think that complicates it for people. I think that the issue with philosophy a lot of the times is that it's fun and interesting to speak about it in the abstract,
right? But
when we inject it into everyday life, it gets complicated.
Sure,
and it's hard to discern those values, those principles, when they're obscured by the specifics of a situation and our self-interest.
Right. So if I'm looking for my own self-interest, right, and I'm sitting here saying, okay, you know what? I care about me, and I care about the people I love.
Yes.
Right? To heck with the rest of the world. It's me and the people I love. Am I saying to myself, look, I want to be happy, want my family to be happy, I want no one to hurt us and take our stuff. At its most basic level, do you think that's true?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I think so. I think that's the smallest circle that people start at.
Right.
I think it actually these are my people.
Right.
You know, that can expand out to be my tribe, whether it's people that look like me, people that think like me, people that live in the same place as me, and all of those things end up becoming their own kind of ideologies, right? We have political ideology, or whether it's religion, whether it's nationalism, whatever it may be. So that can extend out that self-interest.
Right.
But it's like group self-interest.
Right, okay.
You know, so I feel like this is what obscures when we want to get to that singular concept of, at its most basic, human beings want to be happy and they want to be free of suffering.
What about respect? In other words, if I can say to myself, I want to be respected, don't I want other people to be respected? Isn't that kind of the principle of human respect? I don't want my stuff to be taken. I don't want to take your stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want you to hurt me. I don't want to hurt you. If we were to make that more the norm, do you think that idea of human respect would make us happier, nothing's perfect, but happier, more harmonious, and more prosperous? Do you think that's true?
Of course.
Good.
Now, I think that. I think it would be interesting to try to steel man the other side of that argument, right?
Okay. Sure.
So we're aligned on that.
Yep.
I do think that in the long term, the tools that you use to get at your goals are going to ultimately be what builds what you're trying to make, but can equally be what destroys what you're trying to make. So if you use violence, if you use coercion to get to your goal, great, maybe you get there, but those very same tools can be what ultimately destroys what you build in the end.
But if I use coercion to get what I want, and it's against her or against him, aren't I creating less happiness, harmony, and prosperity for them?
Exactly.
So if I want a better world, if I want that, don't I have to have that mutual human respect on both sides? I would, in my mind, that seems like it's a principle. Like if we were to do that, it's if we were to do that, because I know we don't always do that, then we would actually have a world that would be better in every way if we began with human respect. Do you think that's true, or is there something else I'm missing?
I view the idea of respect and similarly human dignity as something that we should use as a foundation.
Got it. That's the base. That's the base principle.
Exactly.
Got
So
it.
when I'm thinking about changes that I want to make in the world, I don't consider pathways that negate human dignity and respect towards
Got
others.
it. Right.
Because I feel that allows for those things to ultimately then be used back against me, back against the people that I care about.
Okay.
So starting from that base of, does this ultimately lift up the idea of respect and human dignity, then that will be what builds the utopia, the goal that I want in the end. You can't, it's like trying to make something beautiful with something ugly. You know, it's like I'm going to use violence to create peace.
Right.
That's not really, like, it's not very cohesive, that's not a very coherent pathway.
Right.
I think there's something very disjointed about that.
It's going to be a temporary solution.
And it's a self-interested one, right?
okay.
Because it gets me what I want in the short term, but ultimately in the long term, it hurts other people, which are we really getting to the biggest goal, which is maximal human happiness, maximal human well-being. So that's where I see this usage of, you know, disrespect or mistreatment or coercion. I feel that when we use these things, we're ultimately allowing them to be used in the future. It's like if you take them off the table, period.
What about an exception, right? What about the idea if I believe in this case, a very common Republican side, there's other sides, the Republican side says, you know what? I want to make a better world for everybody. I care about the world and I care about society. And to do that, I am going to pass a law that says we decide who gets married and how, right? Because that's going to help, right? We're going to have a better society. And my intention is only good. I'm not trying to hurt, but I'm going to pass a law saying, no, I decide whether you get married or you can get married. I decide this. The law is me deciding this. Is there an exception for something like that, for the greater good, right? The greater cultural good? Is there an exception to that rule?
If you believe that humans are infallible, perhaps there could be an exception to that rule. The way I view it is that there's a sacrifice in using that tool, which is the potential for getting it wrong. So good intentions, you know, famously, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right.
So that's not enough. I view it in terms of be aware of the cost that comes by using force.
But hold on, what's the cost in this specific case? In this specific case, I'm not saying we're going to go into the door and shoot people. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, no, you just can't get married unless the state says that's okay. You're the appropriate group of people that can get married. If you're not that, you can't.
Yeah.
So is that really force or not?
So I view it as force,
Okay.
because I believe the way you can characterize it, there's like positive force and negative force.
Okay.
So negative force would be you're unable to do something.
Got it.
Whereas positive force is you are forced to do something.
Got it, okay.
So there is still like coercion, right? This is still a violent act in a certain way. It is still force, even if it's not that kind of like positive force that requires you to act. It merely bars you from
so
doing
even
something.
that is government coercion or government force.
Yeah.
And you would say that's not an exception to our principle. They shouldn't be able to do it.
The other reason I would say that is that it leaves that same tool on the table for the next person to come along and use that with their good intentions that may very well be different from mine or yours.
Absolutely. Let's go to a more neutral issue, kind of.
Okay.
And this is undocumented workers, right? Now the government decides, look, if you hire undocumented workers, that's bad, because the government cares about American workers and wants American workers to work and not undocumented workers.
Yeah.
So we're going to punish the businesses that hire undocumented worker. We're going to punish them. If you're an undocumented worker, we're going to punish the business with force. In this case, it's going to be fines and fees. If you don't pay the fines and fees, you're going to jail, right? We're going to punish the business with that. Is that a good exception? Because again, in this case, we're not trying to hurt people.
Yeah.
We're trying to assist our tribe, as you said, our people. Is that a good exception to use coercion?
That's a difficult question because for me, I don't have a really well-developed viewpoint on that specific issue. So it would be something that I'd be interested to hear your perspective on that and elaborate to me how you view the difference between that as coercion or not as coercion. Because we have a question here, right?
I think it is coercion.
Yeah.
I do. My question is, do you think that something like this... Is it justified? Is it an exception to our rule, right? Our rules in general, government coercion is bad, right? We don't want to do it. We want to worry about human respect, because that's going to give us better happiness, better harmony, better prosperity. But the first idea of stopping you from being married, that's not okay. That's not an exception. Is this an exception where now coercion's okay?
I think you're trying to point out the inconsistencies in my values, perhaps.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm asking if you think that is an exception.
Well, I think that the problem is, and if you come at it from kind of like the libertarian perspective or whatever, that we do have certain things where we say, yeah, there are certain laws that we will agree to that infringe upon our freedom to do things.
Right.
And that we abide by, and that we view them as positive. You know, we have laws against murder. We have laws against, things as minute as
building. I feel
building.
like a law against murder is much more obvious, right? Because now, clearly, any coercion in this case is retaliatory, right?
Yeah.
And I feel that that's not initiating force, right? I've committed the murder, now the state punishes me.
Yeah.
So I initiated force, the state is retaliating. I feel like that's an obvious exception. Am I wrong with that?
No, it's a difficult question because I know that there's a lot of nuances to this, because on the one hand, you have the idea that, well, are we protecting undocumented workers?
Sure.
Because the state of being undocumented also denies them the ability to seek recourse.
Yes.
Right? So there's kind of a question there of, do you have to have the ability to participate in the state to then also be subjected to state laws?
Right.
Maybe there's an equalizing, factor to that.
So you would be open that maybe there is an exception in that case?
Yeah, I definitely think there's exceptions. I'm not across the board that I'm not an anarchist or anything like that.
Sure.
So.
What about the idea that someone would argue, yeah, but now you're initiating force on a business, right? A business or business owner or partners or whoever runs the business, they're going to be saying, wait, I just want the cheapest labor so I can make the best product or service, so I can service my customers. Why are you punishing me? The people are here. Why can't I use them? Are they right?
They're right in pointing out that there is a cost to them and that there is a problem with that. And perhaps that's kind of one of the most difficult parts of politics, is that a lot of the time the solution is going to be something that no one's happy with. And so I think that those are valid criticisms. Though, again, I don't think I have a really defined view on it yet that I can say, yes, I totally agree that undocumented workers should be barred from being able to be hired by businesses. Yet at the same time, I understand both sides of the argument. So it's a tricky one.
Let's go to one more.
Sure.
This one, the first one I talked about was kind of cultural.
Yeah.
The second one was kind of economic. This one's life and death.
Okay.
And this is more of the first one was more Republican, second one was more kind of both. This one is more Democratic. Guns are dangerous. Guns hurt people. Guns kill people. We should ban all the guns, right? Because guns hurt people, and this case, this isn't economics, this isn't social, this is life and death. So we should ban all the guns. So is that a good exception? Because guns are dangerous, because people get killed by guns, we should ban all the guns.
Tough one, because, well, I don't like the universalist approach, like ban all guns. That seems simplistic. So there's one red flag that goes off to me if someone presents that argument, which is, how are you going to do that?
Right.
And two, all.
Yep.
That seems simplistic and likely unable to be, completed.
Well,
and
does
so,
the inability to do it, does that change the ethics or the morals or the principle?
Not per se the inability, but rather what it would require to try to do that, right?
Okay, so you're saying the damage that will be done in doing that.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, not that we couldn't do it, the damage that might be done. So there actually might be more harm than good.
In implementing, yeah.
Got it.
So that's kind of like the harm reduction principle.
Right.
So it's a question. It's definitely a question of what do you value more, But I also think in the case of this particular argument that...
What if you could instead say, you know what, we're not going to ban all the guns.
Okay.
We're going to ban all the AR-15s
Yeah.
and AK-47s, all
Yeah.
of those types of things. We're going to ban all of them.
Okay.
And we're not going to confiscate them because lots of problems, right? I go
Yeah.
to someone's house, whatever. But when we find any, we keep them.
Interesting.
And when anyone's arrested, if they have any, we confiscate them when they get arrested.
Interesting.
So we don't go in your house and take them,
yeah.
but if we catch you with them, we confiscate them. If we arrest you, we check your house, we take them. Because they're all now illegal. How about that? Is that a compromise that's okay in this case? Is that an exception?
So my
Because now
issue,
the implementation is no longer
Yeah,
bloody.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
The implementation is no longer bloody.
exactly.
So the harm in implementing is done.
Exactly.
Then what?
So then you have this other issue that comes up with that was still in the first one, but is less, less egregious than the bloody takeover that would be required.
Right.
Which is you have to grant a government the power to do that.
Right.
And so that's a question there. And that ties into all
Well,
of
what do
this,
we
right?
vote? Right? I mean, the reality I hear most people, they don't even think it's a problem, right? If we vote, it's okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a vote to whether we should, make all the AK-47s and AR-15s illegal, right? And we have a vote, and 51% of the people say yes, we should do that. So now they're all illegal. So we voted.
Yeah.
Does that make it okay now? 51% of the people said we should make them all illegal, and we're not going to go take them. So the bloody aspect, hardly at all.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
only taking them when we can get them.
So this reminds me then of Socrates' criticism of democracy, right? The tyranny of the majority.
Yep.
So it is a question whether there should be certain rights that are beyond being able to be voted on by a 51% majority. At the same time, I know that you can make a constitutional amendment if you
Sure.
get, enough of the states to agree on it. I think it's more than the 51 though. Like I think it has to be
Yep.
higher than that to do that.
It is 2/3.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So that might be the question then. Maybe the bar should be higher to be able to do that.
So
Or should there be inalienable rights?
if there's 2/3 of the people who say, yep, take the guns,
Yeah.
does that make it okay? We've raised the bar now. It's not
Yes.
51%.
It would be more
It's-
democratic.
It's 67%. They say it. Go, yes, 67%, 2/3, yep. Make all the guns, ban all the guns, but don't go in and take them because that'll be a lot of harm.
Yeah. We're leaving that off the table.
Only when we catch them, we take them then.
Yeah.
Would that be okay? Would that be a good enough exception?
Well, you have my personal opinion
Yeah.
and then the philosophical argument on that, which is it depends what you want. Do you want to be primarily a democracy where everything is up for a popular vote? Then perhaps that would be the solution.
I don't want to be that. What I want to be is principled. What I want to be is principled. And in my view,
Yeah.
the baseline principle is human respect. The principle of human respect that says if I don't try to harm people, if I don't take their stuff or defraud them, that there's going to be more happiness, more harmony, and more prosperity. Not perfect. The
Interesting.
world's not perfect,
Yeah.
but it will be better.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to start in my view.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at actual outcome. I'm not looking at intent.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the principle. What about you?
Yeah, I personally have that feeling too. I tend to lean towards less coercion and less force because I don't think that those are the tools by which you maximize human suffering, human flourishing, and
Right.
avoid human suffering. So
But then how do you handle a problem to where so many people, if they vote on it, think it's okay? Like, I would never come take your stuff.
Yeah.
I'll just vote on it, and other people will come take your stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not doing it, but maybe the ATF or the IRS or the local sheriff, they're going to come take your stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not. I just voted. How do you handle an environment to where voting seems to make it okay, even if the outcome of my vote may be coercion?
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of comes down to this idea of inalienable rights. That there are certain things that a human is entitled to.
Got it.
That is beyond something that the majority can decide to revoke from them. And perhaps the right to bear arms would be one of those things.
Got it.
And knowing the history of what it looks like when a country is de-armed, even if everyone at the moment agrees that this is the decision that they want to go with, that tends to leave, go in a bleak direction historically. So, and I don't prefer for the government to have a monopoly on violence.
Right.
So, in my personal preference, I also think that perhaps it's better that this is an inalienable right.
So as a general, if I hear what you're saying that you agree with the idea that the principle of human respect is key.
Yeah.
And there are maybe some exceptions. And now you're not so sure if the harm matters or not. Is that right? Do you still feel the amount of harm being done to implement it matters or no? Does that affect the principle or not? In other words, if, for example, murder is against the law, murder is illegal, I think everybody would agree, I would assume, that's a good law.
Yeah.
Right? Good law. However, outlawing murder doesn't end murder.
Yeah, that's right.
And outlawing murder does cost us time, money, and energy to find the killer.
Yes.
And to punish them. So there is energy and work, and there's a pain in doing it, and it doesn't stop the thing totally. But I think most people would say, no, it's based on the principle. Don't kill people. I don't care if it costs more. I don't care if it's going to be a pain. Don't kill people. The principle's critical. Does that work with this idea of getting guns or banning marriage or, not hiring illegal immigrants? Does that same thing apply or no? Is the principle senior above all, or is it not?
I don't know, because in the case of murder, I do think, the principle of, this would be the principle of human respect in a way.
Absolutely.
So that would be protecting that. So perhaps it depends on, that's tricky because then it depends on what you view as raising up human respect and human dignity. So as a principle, I do believe that it's better to do things from that place of what will promote and protect human dignity.
Right.
But
as
a lot of times you have two
talking,
people that see, well, this is what protects human dignity. No, this is what protects human dignity.
And that was the other piece I want to bring up, right? In today's world, it is very common for someone to say, well, I think X, and then you go, they're a liberal, they're a conservative, they're a this, they're a Democrat, they're Republican. And if you're not that, you shut them out.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm a liberal and you're a Republican and you say, oh, he's a Republican, I don't want to hear him, or whatever, right? Whatever that is, you don't want to hear him anymore. I feel like if we use human respect as a starting point, that people might hear us.
Well, human respect is a unifying idea.
Sure.
Pretty much everyone agrees with that.
Sure.
And that's the interesting part, right? Because at the same time, once you start to get into the nuances of it, they'll say, well, this is what I think upholds human respect. Well, I think that is exactly what degrades human respect.
Okay.
But I think if we move to values, which is I know that's kind of where you are analyzing things from, and I also analyze a lot of things from that
ethics,
too.
Right? I don't mind if you think more progressively or conservatively.
Yeah.
I'm worried about at what point is it okay to use coercion to get your way.
Yeah.
Right? So if I want the world to be more conservative, that's wonderful. But am I prepared to persuade people to be more conservative?
Or force.
Or force them?
Yeah.
If I want the world to be more progressive, am I prepared to persuade them or force them?
Yeah.
I'm more in that world.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? I'm more in that world. So that's where I'm going.
The line between authoritarianism and not.
And what I'm saying is that we have to find a way to decide when is it okay. many people will say, well, what's the intent? Or what's the goal? Or what's the outcome? And they focus on those things.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I would rather, in my own world, I would rather measure when I should use coercion first, bottom line, human respect.
Okay.
Then if it passes that muster, then the rest.
Interesting.
Then the rest.
Okay.
Because if I take human respect and I put it over there, bad things happen.
Yeah, no, of course. I think if you sacrifice human respect, you're going to get the fruits of your labor.
Yes.
You know, like if you're cooking with rotten ingredients, what you make is going to be rotten.
Right, absolutely.
So,
yes.
yeah.
So that's where I'm going. I don't know, is that a place where you feel you are too? I know we talked about ideas of, what makes the most sense or what causes more harm. And
Yes.
I think most people think about these things. Mine is much more simple. I focus first on the idea of respect and then everything else.
Interesting. I like that. I think I focus on avoiding force
Oh, okay.
and on human dignity. But I think that aligns, it's maybe a different
they do.
verbiage for respect.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So you're saying then, if I'm clear, if I want the world or the country or my community to be different, I'm going to say, how do I make this happen without force?
Because the thing is that if you are able to bring people to your viewpoint without force, they become the kind of person that you actually want them to be.
Right, absolutely.
If I force you to adopt my view, you're not actually the person that holds that view.
Correct.
You're a person that has been forced to hold that view, which
Correct.
is a completely different kind of person.
Absolutely.
So we can have a utopia where everyone says the right things, does the right things, but they have no other choice, which means they are not actually those utopianistic citizens.
Correct.
The true goal is to have people in a unified, willing way adopt beliefs that dignify human respect. And the thing is that this is, to me, post-politics. It's very much post-red, post-blue,
Right.
post-ideology.
Right.
And that's why I like this frame of values or ethics
Yes.
or, kind of principles.
Right.
Because it transcends that tribalist view and this kind of like outcome-oriented or your side, my side, I shut down as soon as you're, taking the talking points of the other tribe.
Right.
So
Yes.
I view it like that. I think that that's where we need to go.
That human respect could even get past talking points.
I hope so, and
I
I
hope
believe
so too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow, such a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Good seeing you.
Thank you.